Let me start at the very beginning, with the person who's no longer here but who's still with me. My mom's name was Linda. She was an artist, not the kind who paints greeting cards on commission, but a real one, with a gift, with a spark, with an endless love for colors and forms. I remember her hands, always stained with oil paint, even when she was just stroking my head. I remember the smell of her studio, a mix of turpentine, linseed oil, and somehow vanilla. She loved lighting vanilla candles while she worked. I remember her laugh, quiet, a little apologetic, as if she was afraid of disturbing someone. She taught me to see the world differently. "Look, Emma," she'd say, pointing at an ordinary puddle after rain. "See how the sky reflects in it, how the sun breaks into 1,000 glints. Every puddle has its own universe." And I'd look, and I really did see. She died when I was 5. Pancreatic cancer. Fast, aggressive, merciless. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. I remember that day in the hospital when Dad came out of her room with red eyes, picked me up, and said, "Mom flew away to heaven, sweetheart. Now she'll be a little star and watch over us." I didn't understand what forever meant then. I thought you could reach stars if you climbed high enough. Then came the funeral, which I barely remember. I just remember there was a lot of black and that Dad held my hand so tight my fingers went numb. After Mom died, Dad and I became more than just father and daughter. We became a team, the crew of a sinking ship rowing desperately toward shore. Dad was an architect, not a star, but a solid professional. He'd take me to his office when there was no one to leave me with. I'd sit in the corner with my sketchbook, trying to copy his blueprints. His colleagues found it adorable, called me "Little Architect," gave me candy. But I didn't want to be an architect. I wanted to be like Mom. Dad never cried in front of me. Not once. I only heard him at night, sobbing muffled into his pillow behind the wall. In the morning he'd come out with red eyes, but he'd smile and make me scrambled eggs. He held it together for me. Even as a kid, I understood that. We had traditions. Saturdays, pancakes. Dad's were lopsided, but I loved them. Sundays, watching old movies. We watched all of Chaplin. Every summer, a trip to the sea, to that same little town in Ohio where my parents met. We'd sit on the same pier where Dad first kissed Mom, and we'd just be silent. It was good, just the two of us. I grew up quiet, unnoticeable. Nobody bullied me in school. I was too insignificant for that. I did well academically, but not brilliantly. I had few friends, but they were real ones. Most of my time I spent with a sketchbook in my hands. I drew everything. Trees outside the window, neighbors, the cat, my dreams. By 13, I had a solid portfolio. I'd firmly decided I was going to apply to the California College of the Arts. It was my goal, my beacon, my ticket to a better life. I remember the day Dad said, "Emma, I need to talk to you." He fidgeted, tugged at his tie, a sign of intense nervousness, and looked somewhere to the side. "I've met someone," he said. "Her name is Vanessa. She's really wonderful." Something inside me just collapsed. No, not this. We were a team. We didn't need anyone. But I looked at Dad. For the first time in years, he looked alive. His eyes sparkled. Color had returned to his cheeks. He talked about her the way he used to talk only about Mom. And I nodded. "Of course, Dad. If you're happy, I'm happy." Our first meeting was at a cafe a week later. Vanessa turned out to be a tall blonde with perfect nails and a loud voice that could be heard 3 tables away. She was a real estate agent, divorced, raising a daughter. She talked non-stop, about herself, her successes, her plans. Dad looked at her with lovesick eyes. Chloe sat next to her mother, silently eating cheesecake. She was 13, like me. Blonde hair, blue eyes, full lips. She had that cold beauty that boys like and girls hate. She glanced at me and immediately looked away. I felt like a bug being examined under a microscope and found uninteresting. "Girls, meet each other," Vanessa chirped. "You'll be like sisters." "Hi," I said. "Hi," Chloe replied in a tone that implied, "Back off." 3 months later, they moved in with us. We had a 3-bedroom apartment. One room was empty. I used it as my studio. There was an easel, paints, my works on the walls. Dad said, "Emma, you can paint in your room, right? And Chloe can live in the studio. It'll be more fun for you two together." I nodded again. I didn't know how to say no. I was afraid of upsetting Dad, afraid of seeming selfish. Chloe moved in with 2 huge suitcases and a box of cosmetics. She looked around the room, at my drawings on the walls, and said, "You drew this?" "Yes. Cute. Like kindergarten art. Not mean, not mocking. Just stating a fact, as if I were a little kid showing off scribbles." I swallowed the hurt. At first, we tried to be friends. Honestly tried. At night, after lights out, we'd whisper. She told me about her father, who'd left for another woman and now lived in Texas with his new family and didn't even call. About how she and her mom had struggled, barely getting by until she met Dad. I listened, sympathized, thought we were alike, both missing one parent, both seeking stability. I was wrong. Vanessa never said anything bad to me directly. She was too smart for that. She worked insidiously, in microdoses. I brought home a certificate for first place in the city art competition. Beaming with pride, Vanessa smiled her perfect smile. "Oh, how wonderful. Congratulations, Emma. You know, Chloe auditioned for the school theater today and sang so beautifully. The teacher said she has real talent, should study professionally. Too bad you missed it." Dad bought me a set of professional watercolors. Expensive, I dreamed of them for a year. 3 days later, Chloe had a new handbag. "Just because, Mom gave it to me," she said casually. That bag cost 3 times what my paints did. I asked to enroll in animation courses at the local university. Vanessa sighed. "Emma, that's so expensive. You understand, we're already paying for Chloe's tutors, she's falling behind in math. You don't want your sister to repeat a grade, do you? Maybe wait until next year?" I didn't want my sister to repeat a grade. I agreed to wait. Dad tried to balance things. He saw I was uncomfortable but didn't understand why. Vanessa was affectionate with him, caring, cooked his favorite meals, massaged his back after work, created coziness. He was grateful. He was happy for the first time since Mom died. And I couldn't tell him, "Dad, your new wife is slowly destroying me." Because that would sound like a jealous child's tantrum. I learned to be invisible. Got up earlier than everyone, left for school earlier, came home later, stayed in my room with headphones on. Stopped asking. Stopped complaining. Stopped expecting support. Drawing became my refuge. I drew everywhere. In sketchbooks, in margins, on napkins in the cafeteria. I drew Mom, Dad, our old house, the sea, my dreams. I poured into my drawings all the pain I couldn't express in words. Chloe was popular. At school, she became a star within the first week. Boys wrote her notes, girls wanted to be her friend. She knew how to be liked, how to be the center of attention. At home, she was different, lazy, capricious, demanding. Vanessa waited on her hand and foot. Chloe wasn't mean, at least not openly. She just didn't notice me. I was a piece of furniture, part of the decor. She could walk right past me while I sat at the table drawing, not even glancing my way. She'd take my paints without asking, and when I protested, she'd raise an eyebrow in surprise. "What, you're going to be stingy?" She never showed interest in my drawings. Never once asked what I was drawing, what I was thinking, what I was feeling. I was empty space to her. And you know what? I almost got used to it. Almost accepted it, because I had a goal. I knew I'd leave, that California was waiting, that there I'd be among my people. I got in. The California College of the Arts accepted me based on my portfolio, gave me a small scholarship. Dad was proud to tears. Vanessa smiled and said, "Well, California it is. But it's so expensive there, Emma. You should find a part-time job, so you don't burden your dad." I found a part-time job. Waitressing at a cafe. Up at 5 a.m., classes until 3, work 4 to 11, then homework until 2 a.m. 4 hours of sleep. And I was happy, because I was among my people. In college, I finally blossomed. Professors praised my work, selected it for exhibitions, recommended me for competitions. I made friends, real ones, people I could talk to about color, light, composition without fear of being thought strange. I rarely called home. Dad and I Skyped once a week. He told me about work, about Vanessa, about their vacations. I listened and was glad he was happy. Chloe and I messaged occasionally. "How are you?" "Fine. Anything new?" "Nothing." I'd send photos of my work, she'd reply with emojis. I didn't mind. I had my own life. Sophomore year, I came home for break. No money for separate housing, so I had to stay with them. The room that was once mine now belonged entirely to Chloe. My drawings on the walls were painted over, replaced by cat posters and stupid slogans. My books were pushed to a far shelf. My bed replaced by a sofa. I slept on a camp cot in the living room. Chloe greeted me with indifference. "Hey, how was your flight?" And buried herself in her phone. Vanessa fussed, set the table, but only half listened, interrupting with stories about her successes selling luxury real estate. I missed Dad. We'd sit in the kitchen evenings, drinking tea, chatting. He asked about my work, my plans, my dreams. With him, I felt warm and calm. Then I went to the corner coffee shop. I'd known him since ninth grade. He was in the parallel class, played guitar, wrote poetry. We often crossed paths in the library, sometimes sat near each other in the cafeteria, exchanged a few words. There was always this unspoken attraction between us, but neither of us ever made a move. Both painfully shy. He'd gone to San Diego to study sound engineering, and we'd lost touch. So I walk into the coffee shop, order a latte, and suddenly hear behind me, "Emma?" I turn around. He's standing at the counter with a cup in his hand, smiling. More mature, slight stubble, but the same eyes, kind, attentive, a little shy. We talked for 3 hours. Turns out he was also home visiting his parents. He plays in a band, they've even recorded a couple of songs. One gets airplay on local radio. Dreams of his own studio. I told him about college, my work, California. He listened with such genuine interest that I forgot to be shy. "You know, I always wanted to get to know you better," he said suddenly. "In school, but you seem so unapproachable. Always with a book or sketchbook." "I'm not unapproachable," I smiled. "Just shy, like you." He laughed and took my number. The remaining 2 weeks of break, we were inseparable. He took me to abandoned places, old factories, dilapidated houses where we'd do crazy photo shoots. I drew his portraits, he wrote songs about me. We'd walk through the night city, eat ice cream on the waterfront, watch stars from his roof. Our first kiss happened on a bridge. We were standing, looking at the river, when suddenly he turned, took my face in his hands, and kissed me. Gently, carefully, as if I were made of glass. My knees went weak. I was in love, truly, for the first time in my life. Chloe noticed, of course. She saw me coming home glowing, rushing off to dates, chatting on the phone all night. Once she caught us in the kitchen, having tea in an embrace. She gave Brandon a long, appraising look. "Going to introduce me?" she asked. "This is Brandon," I said. "Brandon, this is my stepsister Chloe." He nodded politely. She smiled her perfect smile. I didn't think anything of that look then. Big mistake. Break ended, we went back to our cities. Him in San Diego, me in LA. 3 hours by car. The distance was hell, but we managed. Every night, video call. Every night, texts. Every 2 weeks, a visit. Sometimes me to him, sometimes him to me. We saved on everything just to see each other. He'd bring his new recordings, I'd give him drawings. We made plans. He was finishing a year earlier, would move to LA to be with me. We searched for apartments online, sent each other links. "Look, here there are 2 rooms, one could be a studio. Here there's a big balcony, we could have breakfast outside." We talked about kids. If it was a girl, Linda, after my mom. If a boy, James, after his grandfather. I was happy. For the first time since Mom died, I was truly, unreservedly happy. 3 years later, when I was in my final year, Brandon proposed. It happened on Santa Monica Beach. He said he wanted to show me a special place. We walked on the pier, rode the Ferris wheel, ate hot dogs. And as the sun began to set, painting the sky in pink and gold, he got down on one knee right there in the sand. People were around. Some applauded, some filmed on their phones. But I only saw him and the little box in his hands. The ring was simple, silver, with a tiny diamond. "Perfect. Emma," he said, "you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're my muse, my friend, my love. Will you marry me?" I said, yes, through tears. We decided the wedding would be in a year, after my graduation. Small ceremony, only closest people. Maybe on this same beach. I called Dad. He cried with joy. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. Mom would be so proud." A month after the engagement, Chloe texted me. "Hey, sis, heard you're doing great? I was thinking, maybe I'll come to LA for a couple weeks. See the city, look for work. Can I crash with you? I'll be minimal trouble, promise." I showed the message to Brandon. "What do you think?" I asked. "Well, she's your sister," he shrugged. "Let her come. 2 weeks will fly by." I agreed. She was my sister. Maybe we'd finally bond? Grown up, changed. Chloe arrived at the end of May. I picked her up at the airport. She looked amazing, thinner, tanned, with a new haircut. Expensive clothes, perfect makeup. It's summer, she explained her tan. The first few days were fine. I showed her the city, museums, beaches, cool neighborhoods. We went to cafes, I introduced her to friends. She was the life of the party, joking, telling stories, charming everyone with her smile. My friend said, "Your sister is so cool. Why haven't you talked about her before?" I hadn't talked about her. Because there was nothing to say. About a week in, I started noticing weird things. Chloe was always around Brandon. When he came home from work, she'd be first to greet him at the door. When we watched movies in the evening, she'd sit next to him on the sofa. It sat three. I could have sat on the other side, but she'd arrange herself so I was on the edge. When we cooked dinner, she'd hover in the kitchen, helping, asking him questions about his work, his music, his band. Once I caught them on the balcony together, talking quietly, heads close. When I came out, they fell silent and moved apart. Sharing secrets? I asked with a smile, though inside something stirred. Planning your birthday present, Chloe replied. We want it to be a surprise. I let it go. My birthday was 2 months away. Then I noticed Chloe's style changing. Before, she wore jeans and t-shirts. Now there were short skirts, low necklines, tight dresses. Heavier makeup, stronger perfume. Why so dressed up? I asked one morning. Want to make an impression on potential employers, she smiled. Looks matter, you know. I didn't know. I went to interviews in jeans and a button-down and got hired. After 3 weeks, Chloe announced she'd found a job at some PR agency and was renting an apartment with a friend. I sighed with relief. Honestly, I was tired of living in constant tension, catching her glances, feeling like a stranger in my own home. We promised to see each other often. She kept that promise. Too well. She'd call Brandon. For work, she had music industry clients, needed sound engineer advice. She'd show up at our hangouts with friends, coincidentally, being at the same bar. She'd invite herself to dinner. Well, I'm alone, too lazy to cook, and your place smells so good. Brandon started changing. Thoughtful, distracted, staying late at work more often, making less eye contact when we talked. Stopped bringing flowers on Fridays, our little tradition. I'd ask what was wrong. He'd brush it off, tired, lots of work. Sorry, babe, I believed him. I wanted to believe. It happened at the end of July. I came home early from work. I had a migraine, my boss sent me home. I drove home thinking, good thing Chloe already moved out, I can rest in peace. Approach the door, hear music. Our record, the one Brandon and I bought together at a flea market. Strange, he should be at work. Open the door. In the hallway, her shoes. Chloe's shoes. Red stilettos she'd bought recently and bragged about. Music louder. From the bedroom, I walked down the hall as if in a dream. Each step an effort. Open the door. They're in my bed. My bed, the one we picked out together at IKEA. On my sheets, the ones I bought because they reminded me of Mom's favorite color. Chloe's lying on his chest. Naked. And looking at me. Not with fear, not with shame. With defiance. With triumph. She'd been waiting for this moment. She wanted me to see. Brandon jerked, tried to get up, got tangled in the sheet, mumbled something. Emma. It's not what you think. We didn't mean to. She said you knew. That you two had agreed. I didn't hear. I was looking at Chloe. She smiled. Slowly, sweetly, like a cat that ate the canary. Hey, sis, she said. Sorry it turned out this way. Love sucks. I left. Calmly closed the door, grabbed my bag, keys, left the apartment. Got in my car, drove to the beach. The one where Brandon proposed, and threw up. The next week is mostly a blur. I stayed with my friend Samantha. Didn't eat, didn't sleep, just lay on the couch staring at the wall. Samantha brought food, made me eat, held me when I sobbed. Brandon called hundreds of times. I declined. Then he started texting. Long messages full of excuses. She seduced me. I was drunk. It was a mistake. I only love you. I read them and felt nothing. Empty. Chloe sent one message. Short and sweet. Sorry if I hurt you. But you can't control your heart. We really love each other. We really love each other. 3 weeks of knowing each other versus our 3 years. A week later, I saw their photo on Instagram. They were at the corner coffee shop, where we'd reunited after school. Caption. When you find your person. Sometimes fate surprises you. I blocked them both. But, helpful. Friends kept sending screenshots. They moved in together. He broke his contract at the San Diego studio and moved to LA to be with her. She got a job at some fancy PR agency. They bought an apartment in a nice area. Got a dog. Perfect life. Me? I failed my thesis defense. Just stood in front of the committee, opened my mouth, and couldn't say a word. Stood there in silence. They let me retake it, but it was humiliating. I barely dragged myself to graduation. Found a job half-heartedly, at a tiny studio, doing boring work for small clients. Friends tried to get me out, but I refused. I stopped drawing. For the first time in my life, I had no desire to pick up a pencil. Dad called a month later and said he and Vanessa were divorcing. She'd found some businessman in Florida and ran off to him, didn't even say goodbye. I'm an idiot, Emma, he said. Wasted years on a woman who only wanted my convenience. I'm sorry. I didn't blame him. He wanted to be happy. Who was I to judge? Chloe stayed in LA. Vanessa left alone. Mother and daughter didn't even say a proper goodbye. Chloe was too busy with her new life. I thought I hated them. Then realized. Hate is too strong a feeling, it requires energy. And I had no energy. I was empty. 3 years passed like that. Samantha made me see a therapist. You can't go on like this, she said. You'll either die or kill someone. Third option. See a professional. I went. Dr. Mendez turned out to be an older Mexican woman with kind eyes and an amazing ability to listen. The first few sessions, I just sat in silence. Stared at the wall. She didn't rush. Then I started talking. First about Mom, then Dad, Vanessa, Chloe. About Brandon. About opening that door. What do you feel now? She asked once. Nothing. Empty. That's normal. Emptiness is a place where something new can grow. But first you need to fill it with something else. Not pain. Not anger. Something of your own. Like what? I don't know. Let's find out. We searched for 6 months. I started drawing again. First just scribbles, then something meaningful. Landscapes, portraits, abstractions. I drew my pain, my emptiness, my anger. Poured onto paper everything that had accumulated for years. Then I accidentally stumbled on Chloe's LinkedIn profile. I wasn't looking for her. Just typed a name into search, and autocomplete suggested hers. I clicked, out of masochism. Her profile said she'd graduated college with honors. But I knew the truth. She barely passed her finals, and as mutual acquaintances whispered, with help from her mom who arranged things, with some professor. I started digging, found her resume on another site. There was a list of projects she'd worked on. 1. An ad campaign for the clothing brand, Urban Nomad, looked familiar. I searched my studio's archives. Bingo! Our department had handled that campaign 2 years ago. My colleague Michael personally. I remembered that project. Michael was proud of it. And Chloe. Chloe was working as an assistant at the client's agency then, just bringing them coffee at presentations. I called Michael. Hey, busy? Never for you. What's up? Remember the Urban Nomad project? Yeah, great work. Why? Look at this resume. I sent him the link. A minute later, he called back. You're serious? This girl claims she led the project? She was just a secretary there. Brought us coffee, for crying out loud. Barely remember her. Thanks, Michael. You've been a huge help. I created a folder on my computer. Named it, Chloe, Dossier. I dug for 3 months. Found her old colleagues from the agency in our hometown. One woman, Sarah, agreed to talk. Oh, Chloe, Sarah grimaced on Zoom. Nobody liked her here. Pathological liar. She stole my project, one I'd worked on for 6 months, and claimed it as her own. I almost got fired when they realized the results didn't match what was promised. Good thing my boss had known me for years and believed me, not her. She was fired the same day. That was, let me think, 4 years ago? 4 years ago, right before she moved to LA. I told Sarah that Chloe was now in Los Angeles, working at a big PR agency, and apparently still using the same tactics. Sarah promised to help if needed. I found 3 more former colleagues. Same stories. Lies, taking credit for others' work, manipulation. Chloe burned every bridge behind her but always found new opportunities. Then more. I discovered the honors diploma was fake. She bought it online for $500. References from past jobs. Forged. I found the people whose names were listed. They'd never heard of her. But the most interesting was yet to come. I hired a private investigator. Yeah, expensive. Almost all my savings. But I didn't care. I wanted to know everything. The investigator worked for 4 months. Brought reports, photos, printouts. What he found exceeded my wildest expectations. Chloe worked at Sterling & Associates, PR, pretty big firm, music industry clients. Position: Senior Account Manager. Salary: around $200K a year. She got that position purely on her fake resume. But that was just the beginning. The real story: she'd been stealing. Systematically, methodically, for 2 years. Simple scheme. Company allocated budgets for events, concerts, presentations, parties. Chloe would contract with vendors, either under her control or just friendly, inflate costs 2 or 3 times, and split the difference. Money went through shell companies, offshore accounts, straw people. Total over 2 years, around $700,000. The investigator found the trail. Bank transfers, shell companies, emails. All documented. And something else. Chloe was having an affair. With a famous music producer named Marcus Stone. Married. Father of 2. They met in hotels, traveled together on business, WhatsApped constantly. The investigator got screenshots of their chats, very explicit. Brandon, apparently, knew nothing. Kept working at the studio, writing music, trusting his wife. I sat with that report for 3 hours. Read, reread, checked, double-checked. Then I smiled. For the first time in 3 years. I didn't just want to ruin her life. I wanted her to collapse completely. No chance of recovery. So that everyone who'd helped her, believed in her, loved her, would know the truth. The plan took a month to develop. I thought through every detail, every step, every possible reaction. I became obsessed. Here's what I came up with. Step 1. Through a fake LinkedIn account, called myself Karen from HR Consulting, I wrote to Chloe's boss, Mr. Thompson. Polite email. We're checking a candidate who listed your company, could you confirm details? And attached screenshots of Chloe's resume showing the fake diploma and links to projects she had nothing to do with. No CC, just information to consider. Step 2. Through the investigator, for extra money, I sent Brandon an anonymous letter by mail. Inside, photos of Chloe and Marcus at hotels, with dates and times, screenshots of their chats, printouts of bank transfers to shell accounts. No signature, no return address. Just facts. Let him decide what to do with it. Step 3. I found Marcus's wife's contact info. Her name was Victoria, from a wealthy family, connected in high circles. I sent her the exact same envelope, photos, chats. No comments. Just information. Step 4. I created an anonymous Twitter account. Handle: @TruthTellerLa, and started dropping hints. Nothing specific, no names. I wonder if a certain PR company knows their employee has been embezzling for 2 years? Think the wife of a certain producer knows who her husband sleeps with when he's supposedly in the studio. Why do some people always get away with everything? I waited, patiently, methodically. The first bomb went off in 2 weeks. Victoria Stone, the producer's wife, turned out to be a woman of action. Instead of making a scene at home, she made it public. Burst into the restaurant where Chloe and Marcus were having a candlelit dinner and dumped champagne on Chloe. 2 glasses. Red wine on white dress. Quite the spectacle. Someone filmed it. The video went viral, millions of views in a day. Hashtag champagne justice trended. Marcus Stone fired Chloe from all his company's projects. Terminated contracts with her agency. Posted a penitent Instagram message about how he'd succumbed to temptation and was begging his wife and children for forgiveness. Victoria forgave him, or pretended to. Business stayed with her. Second strike. Chloe's boss, Mr. Thompson, after receiving my letter, started a quiet investigation. Called in auditors. They found the discrepancy. Not immediately, but they found it. $700,000 is too much to miss. Chloe was suspended, access to all documents blocked. Police called. Investigation began. Third strike. Brandon got my letter. He later told me, tried to contact me, but I didn't listen, that at first he didn't believe it. Thought it was a setup, competitors, haters. But the photos were too clear. Dates too specific. Chats too explicit. He came home, put the envelope on the table, and asked, "Is this true?" Chloe tried to lie. Said photoshopped. Letters forged, conspiracy. But when Brandon said he'd called her boss and the boss confirmed the investigation, she broke. Admitted everything. He threw her out that same night. Filed for divorce the next day. Everything fell apart in 5 days. Chloe lost her job. Criminal case opened for fraud in especially large amounts. She faced real prison time. Brandon filed for divorce and demanded compensation for the apartment, bought during marriage but mostly paid for by him. Reputation destroyed. Champagne video all over social media. Professional community turned its back. No one wanted to hire a woman who stole from employers and slept with clients. She tried to defend herself. Gave interviews to tabloids, cried on camera, claimed she was set up, a victim of circumstances. No one believed her. Too much evidence. Chloe left LA within a month. Rumor had it, went to her mother in Florida. But Vanessa, as Dad told me, they occasionally talked, wouldn't even let her in the door. Afraid the daughter would ruin her relationship with her new husband. Chloe was alone. Brandon tried to contact me. Long letters. Apologizing. Saying he'd been blind, an idiot, that Chloe bewitched him, that he realized his mistake. That he only loved me, always had. I read the first letter. It was pathetic. He wrote about sleepless nights, crying, willing to do anything for forgiveness. I threw the letter in the trash and blocked his number. Not because I hadn't forgiven. Because I didn't want to go back. Some things can't be fixed. Some people stay in the past. And that's okay. I felt no triumph. Honestly, when I learned Chloe was fired, charged, thrown out, I sat on my apartment floor and cried. But those were tears of relief. And tears for the girl I used to be. For those 3 years of happiness that were stolen. I went to my therapist and said, I think I'm ready to move on. Dr. Mendez smiled. I know. I see it in your drawings. I met Mark 6 months after Chloe's exposure. He was an architect, worked at a firm our studio collaborated with on a project. We crossed paths at a meeting, then coincidentally met at a coffee shop, started talking. Easy with him. He didn't ask too many questions, didn't pry, but was always there when needed. We dated for a year before I worked up the courage to tell him the whole story. I was scared, thought he'd be afraid, leave, think I was a monster. He listened silently, sat, looked at me, and listened. When I finished, he said, You didn't destroy her life. You just stopped letting her destroy yours. And you know what? That's pretty damn cool. I couldn't have done it. I laughed through tears. First time in a long time. We married a year later. Small ceremony. Only close friends and Dad. Dad walked me down the aisle, and I saw tears in his eyes. He must have been thinking of Mom. No one from that old life was there. Not Chloe, not Brandon, not Vanessa. Only new people, new family, new me. 2 years later, we had a daughter. We named her Linda, after my mom. When I hold her, I sometimes think about Mom. About how she held me. About what she saw in me. I want Linda to grow up strong. To know how to stand up for herself. To know that family isn't necessarily blood. Family is those who truly love you. Recently I visited my hometown to see Dad. He'd sold our old apartment and bought a little house outside town, with a garden. We sat on the porch, drinking tea, chatting. You know, he said suddenly. I ran into Chloe. Something clenched inside me. Where? At the post office. She works there. Cashier. He told me she'd come back to town a year ago. Lives in some rundown rooming house on the outskirts, rents a room. Works at a convenience store and part-time at the post office. Looks terrible, aged, haggard, dead eyes. She asked for money, Dad said. I refused. I nodded. Next day, Mark, little Linda, and I drove into town for groceries. Passing the convenience store on the outskirts, I glanced through the window. She was at the register. I recognized her instantly, though she'd changed beyond recognition. Gaunt, dull eyes, cheap uniform. Ringing up some old lady's purchases, not even looking up. She didn't notice our car. If she had, she probably wouldn't have recognized me. I'm not that timid girl anymore, the one who could be trampled with impunity. Mommy, look, a cow. Linda squealed, pointing at a field. I smiled, hugged my daughter, and told Mark to drive on. I felt nothing. Not gloating, not pity, not satisfaction. Just a closed chapter. A book I'd finished and put on the shelf. Afterward, I know some will say I was cruel. That revenge isn't the answer. That I should have forgiven and moved on. Maybe they're right, maybe not. I'm not proud of what I did. But I don't regret it either. Chloe got exactly what she deserved. Not because I'm so evil, but because sooner or later, the truth always comes out. I just helped it along a little faster. The main thing I learned from this: life goes on. No matter what happens, no matter how much it hurts, the sun rises every morning. And one day you wake up and realize you're not crying anymore. That you can smile. That you can love. That you can live. I live. And that's the best revenge.